I hit the floor at gate E12 with a boarding pass in my hand and $51 to my name. A stranger bent down to catch me before my head touched the tile, and every phone in Istanbul airport came up like a firing squad, recording the moment a man known for never laying a hand on anyone put both palms on my pulse. If it were you, would you let him help, or would your pride make you crawl to your feet and pretend you were fine? Be honest. I wasn't fine, not even close. I'd been pulling doubles back in Cleveland, sleeping on my cousin's love seat, stuffing cash into a coffee tin, and telling myself I could muscle through one last connection to get to a teaching program in Jakarta. Work now, breathe. Later, that was the plan then. The lights inside me went dim, and the edges of the world went fuzzy like bad radio, and that's when I heard a calm voice I didn't recognize cut through the crowd, like a knife through plastic. Step back, give her air, steady, no panic, just authority with a soft landing, and I felt fingers at my neck that didn't shake. He smelled like clean soap and airplane cabins. His suit was navy, his tie was a tight half-Windsor that said he knew exactly what he could control and what he couldn't, and he loosened the scarf around my throat like he'd done it 1,000 times. Not performative, not for the cameras that were already up, just competent, just focused. "You're not dying," he said, when my voice rasped out, that ridiculous question we ask when we're more embarrassed than hurt. Not on my watch, and the way he said it made the nurse who had rushed over move a little faster, like she'd just been handed the playbook. They rolled me through a door I would have never noticed, a small clinic that smelled like lemon cleaner, and long nights. The nurse slipped a line into my arm sugar, in a bag dripping life back into me, and the man in the navy suit stood near the door, with his attention in the room and his phone in his pocket, not leaving, not hovering, just there, the right amount of there. "When was the last time you ate?" he asked. Not scolding, not sweet, just direct. Pride is a terrible lawyer. It tells you to lie, even when there's surveillance footage of your empty wallet. I shrugged, like it was nothing. Told him I was traveling, and food was expensive, past security. Told him I'd be fine after some water. He watched me the way chess players watch a board, like he was 4 moves ahead, and making sure I could still see the next square. Then he said, "I'm Dr. Rowan Lee," just like that, like he was telling me the weather, and the nurse's eyebrows went up, because that name opens doors on its own surgeon, founder, heir, to a medical empire that funds 6 clinics across the Mediterranean and the Gulf. The kind of man magazines call untouchable. The kind of man people whisper about in boardrooms and group chats, Marble Heart. That's what they call him. No romance, no hand-holding. A genius with a closed sign where most men keep a welcome mat. Why did he help me? Because I fell, that's what he said. And because he doesn't like leaving things unfixed, the words sat between us like a box neither of us wanted to open. The nurse told me to just another hour. I gave her the smile broke girls practice in mirrors. The one that says I'll be okay when I'm not. And I signed myself out early because counting dollars is its own form of chest pain. I got as far as the sliding doors before the world tilted again. His hand didn't touch me, but it hovered. You know what I mean? That respectful, almost like a guardrail, that doesn't have to catch you because you decide to lean away. "You have somewhere to sleep?" he asked, and it wasn't really a question. "I'll figure it out," I said, eyes on my backpack like it was going to sprout a mattress. He looked at the frayed straps, the taped zipper pulled the way my fingers curled around it, like a lock on a door that doesn't exist. Then he said it simple, like a solved equation. "I'll arrange a room." "No," I said too fast because help can feel like a receipt. "You'll have to pay later. I'm not a project." He didn't flinch, didn't charm, didn't insist. Just said, "You're not a project. You're a person who fainted on marble. Someone should make sure you're not sleeping on it tonight. Let me be someone. That line, man, it slipped under my armor. I wish I could tell you. I stayed strong and walked away into a romantic montage of independence and cheap coffee, but I got in his car instead. A quiet sedan that smelled like leather cleaner and patience, and we rode along the Bosphorus with the city lit up like a string of hot pearls. I kept my eyes on the lights because it hurt to look at him, the way he didn't crowd me, the way his hand hovered each time the driver braked an airbag. He refused to deploy without permission. And something in my chest unclenched a little. We stopped at a building with a lobby so glossy it felt like a mirror you could fall into. I told him no. Again, he told me every decent hotel was booked out because of a medical summit he was hosting. Maybe that was true. Maybe it was a reason for me to borrow so I wouldn't have to steal. Temporary, he said one night, and in the elevator I asked him flat out, "Do you always take in strangers you find unconscious at airports?" he said. "Not anymore." And that word hung in the air until the doors opened to glass and stone and a view of boats moving like lit-up fish. The place was beautiful, the way museums are beautiful, expensive and empty. He set his keys in a bowl that probably cost more than my old car, and didn't move further in. He stood there like a man who wasn't sure he belonged in his own life. And I asked about the anymore, because apparently I don't know when to stop. Someone I loved once fainted at a party. He said I wasn't there to catch her. By the time I got there, she had already chosen someone who was lesson learned. No drama, no bitterness, just the clean cut of a man who stitched his own wound and kept working. "I don't touch people I can't hold on to," he added, looking out at the river like it owed him an answer. And I said, I was sorry, even though sorry is a thin blanket for that kind of cold. I slept on the couch with my shoes on and my backpack under my arm. Old habits are Kevlar, and I woke to oatmeal and coffee and a billionaire doctor rolling his sleeves to make breakfast like it was the most normal thing in the world. "You postponed a surgery for me," I blurted, because at some point between midnight and morning I'd Googled him and learned he is the hospital. His name is on a building. His board has a PR team you can smell across a lobby. He shrugged. "Emergencies moved to the head of the line. You were an emergency. Now you need food that outranks everything." I laughed and cried at the same time. He pretended not to notice. We ate in a silence that didn't scrape, and then his phone lit up with the kind of alert that puts ice in smart men's eyes. Viral clip me in his arms. Caption after caption calling him Marble Heart. No more people love it when stone looks soft, you know. We went back to the airport because I still had this fantasy I could slip into another life without anyone noticing. Foolish, the arrivals hall was a tide of cameras and curiosity. "Lee, who is she? Are you finally seeing someone? Is this a stunt?" Questions flew like gnats. His hand went to my back, not touching, just near. "Eyes up, walk with me," he said, like a surgical order. And truth be told, my legs obeyed inside the glass. The noise went soft. "Why do they care?" I asked. He looked at me like it was algebra he'd solved years ago. "Because I picked you up." "I don't pick up people. Curiosity is currency." His phone rang again. He listened, jaw tightening. "The board wants an explanation," he said. "They'd prefer I not be impulsive with optics," and there it was. I wasn't a person anymore. I was optics, a word that tastes like plastic when it hits your tongue. He told me about a charity gala that night for his foundation money for clinics that treat folks who can't pay. "Come with me, stand there. Let me turn this into a conversation about care instead of gossip." I said no because I am a professional at saying no to things that might help. And he said something that made me pause. "If you don't come, they'll write your part for you." If you do, you can be a person with a name, not a headline." Then he shut up, which I respected. Quick pattern interrupt because I need you with me here. This is where people tend to lean back like the movie will carry them, sit up, because the next 15 minutes changed everything. I thought I knew about who was helping who. Stick around, because what happened next will blow your mind. I made a deal, no princess treatment, no fairy godmother. If he introduced me, it would be by my name and not as a mystery. He said yes, like he meant it. Yes, like a man who likes rules, and he brought in a stylist. Anyway, I didn't fight because sometimes rest looks like letting someone else carry the mirror. We picked a cobalt dress that didn't scream, it just told the truth quietly. I looked like myself with the volume turned up. He stood in the doorway, tux, sharp eyes soft for half a second. "You look like you," he said, and that was somehow the best thing he could have said. We hit the ballroom, and the heat of attention hit back. You can feel it, the way a room leans. The diamond crowd appraised me like I was a handbag. They couldn't place. The first woman who came over smiled only with her teeth. I stuck my hand out before he could speak. Riley James, teacher in training, part-time diner philosopher, accidental floor tester at gate E12. It got a laugh from the tables around us, not mean, more like they'd been waiting for permission to stop pretending. This wasn't weird, and a man in a skinny tie slid in quick. "Riley, lovely for the press. We'll call you a family friend." "It will play better," he said. "PR Cologne. Strong name tag," said Colton. And Rowan didn't even look at him when he said, "She's not a family friend, she's Riley. If they can't handle that, they don't need a statement." Colton's smile flickered like bad Wi-Fi, and that's when I noticed something that made my blood go hot. Across the room near the stage lights, a pair of photographers were conferring with Colton's assistant. She pointed at me, then toward the dais. Then made a gesture, like someone fainting, dramatic, theatrical. We were a storyboard to them, not a night for fundraising, a night for image management. And I remembered the way those cameras had been lined up at the airport, like they'd been tipped too fast, too neat, and a thought slid in that I didn't want. What if this wasn't a storm we survived together? What if it was a storm somebody built on purpose? Not him, no, not the man who made oatmeal at dawn, but maybe his machine, the foundation with the glossy brochures, the donors who need a story they can sip with their scotch. Do you think that's fair, to turn a collapse into a campaign, even if the money goes to something good? The mic found Rowan. He talked about winter and empty shelves and kids who don't bounce back the way headlines do. Then, Sierra Vale, a lifestyle anchor, with eyes like fresh ice, glided up with a camera team at her hip. "Quick question, Dr. Lee. Riley, is this a stunt or a love story?" she asked. And there it was, the trap, soft voice, sharp teeth. Before I could answer, she raised her phone to show a clip from 3 years ago, his ex, a party, a stumble, captions like, "Pattern and savior complex," crowd murmuring. Colton's assistant watching me like she'd already written my line. And I realized the twist wasn't that I'd been rescued. The twist was that somebody wanted to sell the rescue like a soap rinse and repeat, until the IPO, and I felt something old rise in me. The same heat from the time a principal called my mother irresponsible because I fainted during assembly, and nobody asked if we had food at home. My turn. "If a woman falls and a human catches her." "That's not a stunt," I said into Sierra's mic. "Quaver, no sugar. That's table stakes for decency. If you need a romance arc to make it worth your feed, that's about your ratings, not our lives. And since we're filming near a donation link, here's the story. I'd like to trend, clinics run out of heat packs in January, parents heat water on a hot plate, and drive across the city, hoping someone will help for free. If optics need a hero, make winter the villain. Not a stranger who did the right thing with his hands. And while we're here, I turned to Colton, because he'd inched closer, like a man about to stage whisper correction. How many tens of thousands did we spend on the floral wall in the lobby? And how many blankets would that buy you? Could feel the air raft. Sierra blinked the board chair. An older woman with silver hair and a gaze that made people sit up straight stood and clinked her glass. The room turned to her like sunflowers to light. "Less walls, more blankets," she said to Riley, for reminding us what the point is, and just like that, half the guests applauded, because it is safer to join than resist, and the other half looked for the nearest exit strategy. And still, the machine doesn't like being embarrassed. That's the thing, power prefers quiet correction, not public surgery. The morning after the gala, the board met a leak hit the tabloids. An old photo of Rowan arriving late to that party years ago, tie crooked hair off the caption said, "History repeats," implying the rescue was a kink or a PR habit. The committee voted to suspend him for 60 days while they reviewed conduct. I watched him read the message on the park bench across from the foundation. HQ watched his hands still on his knees, not clenched, not shaking, just still, and I braced for the explosion that never came. "I can live with that," he said, "not bravado, just acceptance. I won't beg and I won't stop. Titles don't operate hands." Doohy sent one text to the finance team, transferring $10 million to cover winter shortfalls. Money isn't an alibi, but sometimes it is a bridge while you build a better one. And then he put his phone face down and sat with me. Two people on a bench staring at the Bosphorus like it was going to tell us how to be next. If it were you, would you step back for optics? Or would you double down and dare them to make it permanent? A week later, donations poured in like someone finally remembered where their heart is. Sierra's segment linked the Winter Fund, in spite of herself. Maybe strategy, maybe conscience, I don't care. Clinics stocked up, heaters stayed on in me. I moved into a tiny room with a window that looked at a brick wall and a sliver of sky. I danced in my socks while eggs burned in a pan, too thin. And when Rowan knocked, he brought groceries, not flowers. Coffee, rice, lentils, practical. Love, the kind that doesn't announce itself with 600 likes. He looked around the place, smiled like it was a palace. Didn't sit until I said sit. Didn't reach for me until I reached for him. Chemistry. Isn't fireworks? Sometimes it's two people learning the choreography of respect. "I don't know what happens now," he said. Plain honest. "Me neither," I said. And we both stood there with our yesterdays in our pockets and a future we could see but not claim. Slowly, we agreed a luxury we would try to afford. And here's where I leave you with a question that will get some of you heated. Was the board right to suspend him for carrying a stranger? Should power come with rules that look good on a press release, even when they feel wrong in a moment that asks for a human hand? And another one if a PR team sets the stage for a decent act because they know it will raise money for people who need it. Is that manipulation? You can live with, or a line you won't cross. Do ends justify means? When the end is a warm clinic in winter? Or does that logic always come back to bite us? Tell me what you think. Tell me where you're watching from. Tell me the time you fell and who reached for you, or the time you reached and someone told you to mind your optics. Yeah. This happened to me in a place I never thought I'd stand. And if it sounds messy, it's because it was. Life doesn't wrap itself in clean bows just because the cameras are rolling. But I'll say this without blinking. If you see someone go down, be the person who catches them, camera or no camera, applause or suspension, praise or punishment, be that person. Drop your take in the comments. Go hard. If you disagree, tell me if you think justice is a vote in a conference room, or a hand, steadying a stranger before their head hits tile share. This with someone who needs a nudge to act instead of analyze. And if you've been that hand or needed one, say so. I'll read every word, because this is one of those stories that doesn't end with a kiss or a courtroom. It ends with what we decide to do the next time the floor looks unforgiving and the world is watching.